Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for humoring me with that chuckle. It takes some of us back. Test. Is that getting out there a little bit? Good. Welcome to the beautiful setting here at Ijams. We're thankful for not only where we're at playing, but also for the weather that we're going to enjoy this afternoon. For the fact that you all are here, we wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have folks out here to play for. For the fact that we have a fantastic guest artist that's going to come up and join us in a little while, Mr. Greg Tardy. We'll talk about that in just a while. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But let's listen to the band play a few tunes. The first thing we're going to play is it's now a jazz standard. It was written by Blue Mitchell, the trumpet player, and he called it Fungii Mama. And it's going to serve as a vehicle to introduce you to various members of the band through improvised solos. Fungii Mama by Blue Mitchell. Wetzel, guitar, Bearden High School. Christian School. Summit Hetman, Bearden High School. Fairchild, Bearden High School. Logan Franklin, Bearden High School. Thank you, Knoxville Jazz Youth Orchestra. And you also heard from Silas Good and trombone there at the end.
Yeah, it's Silas.
The final solo, I should be more specific about that. And prior to that, before I discovered that there's a microphone up here, you heard from Dominic Escobar from Sevier County High School on tenor saxophone. You heard from Patrick Houston on trumpet from Central High. Brady Pinchok on tenor saxophone right here next to me from Farragut High School. And on drums, Yejun Ham from Bearden High School. We're going to continue with music by Jimmy Heath, great tenor saxophonist, band leader, one of the three musician Heath brothers that sometimes played together. He wrote this composition entitled Gingerbread Boy, and it fittingly features our tenor saxophonists, Brady and Dominic. Dominic Escobar, tenor saxophone. Brady Pinchuk, tenor saxophone. Asia Thaler from Concord Christian School on drums. And one of the opportunities that this particular organization offers is that not only do we have regular members of the band, I think there's 19 or so regulars out of the 21 up here, and on any given performance, there could be somebody down for the count due to illness. We got one of those today. Due to orthodontic hijinks, we got one of those today. And that allows us the opportunity to bring in, call upon our casts of alternates and allow them the chance to play with us. Sometimes they get to come into rehearsals at the last minute. One of our alternates who's been with us all year long is on alto sax Landon Lazier from Bearden High School.
Yeah.
And there's another guy up here on the bandstand. He probably doesn't wish that I were speaking about him and drawing the spotlight to him in quite this way, but he's here for the very first time, I think, right? Second time tonight, right? From my memory. And he got the call at the very last minute today, and he's come in and he's playing Barry sax for us, and that's Alex Delphin from Sevier County High School. Thanks for being here. The next piece is this is going to feature Dominic Escobar on tenor sax. You just heard from him on the first piece. And this is Charles Mingus' Goodbye Porkpie Hat. Once again, Dominic Escobar on tenor saxophone. And Mingus wrote that for the legendary tenor saxophone player Lester Young. That was his tribute to Lester upon his passing. Every time we get together and play out somewhere, we try to play something that's new to us in terms of presenting it for you all. This next piece, I think, fits that, checks that box. This is a composition by Gordon Goodwin, the Los Angeles-based band leader. He's got a band out there called the Big Fat, P-H-A-T Band, stocked full of studio session players. Really great, inspiring sounds, fantastic players, and he writes in a wide array of styles. This particular composition of Gordon Goodwin is a sequel. He wrote a piece that we've played before called Count Bubba, and this one was on the heels of that, and it's called Count Bubba's Revenge, music by Gordon Goodwin. Thank you very much. Charlie Fairchild on alto saxophone, the Knoxville Jazz Youth Orchestra. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to a friend of mine, a guy that I've known for quite a few years now, since he's come to Knoxville. He's made quite an impact here, not only as a player in the Knoxville Jazz Orchestra, but as an educator at the University of Tennessee. And he also, in spite of his international touring, he finds time to come out and work with younger students as well. He takes them on as private students, and he's found time to come out and spend a couple evenings with us this school year in our rehearsals. And so I thought it would be fitting to ask him if he could come out and share with you a little bit of what he does as an artist, as an instrumentalist, and give you a little taste of the interaction that we have together when he's with us in rehearsal. So without further ado, first of all, playing clarinet with us tonight on a Clark Terry composition called Boomerang is Greg Tardy.
Woo! Yeah, cool.
Greg Tardy, clarinet.
That was great.
Thank you, Greg. He said he'll come back and play a little bit of tenor saxophone with us on the second set, so stick around. We're going to change the vibe a little bit again. That's one of the things that bands love to do, and we're certainly trying to tap into that as much as we can. This is what might be described as West Coast cool. It came along in the 1950s, and it was kind of a alternative to the bebop that was happening elsewhere. And these guys in this cool school still were boppers in their own way, but it was just a little different vibe. This piece, to represent that, was written by the legendary band leader, composer, arranger Bill Holman, who was with us until just a short time ago, and he lived to be a ripe old age and kept producing for way into his 80s. And this piece by Bill Holman is called Theme and Variations. Thank you. We're going to continue with music by a Southerner. I spent my undergraduate days, the end of my undergraduate days in Atlanta, and got to play with a number of organizations as I was cutting my teeth, including the band at Morehouse College, which led to work with the Neighborhood Arts Ensemble. The Neighborhood Arts Ensemble played jazzmobile gigs all around the city in the summertime. Primarily on the south side of town in the city parks. A lot of settings just like this. And half of the book was the trumpet player Cecil Bridgewater's compositions, and the other half of the book was by Atlanta's Duke Pearson. And Duke, by that time, was back in Atlanta, and he spent time with us, with the band, on occasion. And it was just a thrill to be in front of him to play his music. And even though his multiple sclerosis was advanced at the time, he still had ways of letting us know when we were playing his music in a way that touched him. And it was very meaningful time of my life. So here's Duke Pearson's Jeannie.
Yeah. Okay.
Once again, Charlie Fairchild on alto saxophone. Esme Shaver on keyboards. This band has been going for close to 20 years now, and depending on our audition interest and aptitude in the fall, we have lots of decisions to make in terms of who gets to play in the band, who becomes an alternate, and whether we carry one drummer or two, one guitar player or two, etc. And this year, for the first time after the auditions, we decided that we really wanted to create a forum, an opportunity for a second keyboard player to serve as an understudy. And after the way Esme played in the audition, we extended to her the opportunity to come and be part of the group and be at rehearsals, and then she's charged with playing at least one piece every time that we're out in public. So we're glad she's here.
Yeah.
Now we're going to turn to the music of Count Basie, and specifically his guitarist, Freddie Green, who played rhythm guitar, and most people would agree that you hardly ever heard Freddie, you felt him. He didn't use a microphone. Of course, when they started that band, microphones were a rarity, and they were generally used only in recording situations, not in live performances. And then the entire group would get around a single microphone, and there were a lot of bell front-facing instruments, and some of the quality of the recordings reflects the problems that came from that time period with the limited technology and limited gear that they had. But Freddie played rhythm guitar for the Basie band for decades, and he also contributed the following piece of music to the library, and it's got a couple titles. It's known as Until I Met You, as well as Corner Pocket, music by Freddie Green from the Count Basie Orchestra. Patrick Houston on trumpet, Brady Pinchuk on tenor saxophone, Summit Hipman on keyboard, Eugene Ham on drums. We're gonna play one more tune and then take a little break and then come back and play a whole nother set for you. The final tune here of this set is music of Miles Davis. He's, to me, one of the most fascinating people in jazz as a band leader, as a composer, as an artist. He never stopped evolving, and this piece represents evolution into the pop music of the late 70s, 1980s. And it's called, this composition of Miles is called Tutu.
Big ones. Yeah.
Landon Lazier, alto saxophone. Patrick Keaston, trumpet. Summit Hipman, piano. The Knoxville Jazz Youth Orchestra. Thank you. We're going to take a little break and come back and play for you some more.